Hey, welcome to another episode of Southern Ohio Matters with host Gina Collinsworth. Gina is a public information coordinator with OVRDC, Ohio Valley Regional Development Commission, and she is a special guest. Today, they're going to be talking about ARC, what is it, where the money comes from, the Census, EDA, the Economic Development Administration, the Careers Act, and some other things. So stay tuned. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Southern Ohio Matters. Gina, it's always good working with you on our telecasts.
Good morning, Patrick. How are you? How is everybody out there?
We're all doing well. We're itching to get back to normalcy, if you want to call it that. It's always interesting that when we are working on a Zoom on our telecast, it's really turning out to be a nice thing because we can meet with different individuals, such as a guest that you have. And I'm really looking forward to today's program.
It's always a pleasure to be here and try to share the information that we have at the Ohio Valley Regional Development Commission, because there are a lot of great programs out there that we think would benefit a lot of the people in our region, and that's why we come on here, and we're thankful that you give us the time to talk about it. A lot of things are going on in our region, as you know, and you can tell we're all still working from home. And I brought one of my coworkers with me today from her home. Jessica Keeton is here. Jessica is the Economic Development Coordinator for the Ohio Valley Regional Development Commission. Good morning, Jess. Thank you so much for being part of the show today. So we were going to talk about some really important information, especially from the Appalachian Regional Commission, and Jessica is the person to talk about that with. She is the person in our office who handles a lot of the applications that come through, so we're looking forward to that. But Patrick, before we get to that, I wanted to ask you, are you an amateur photographer?
I would like to think so. However, my wife is much, much better. My daughter is really good. Southern Ohio has a lot of beautiful types of things that individuals can really enjoy. And it's sad that the world can't see what we see on a daily basis.
Yes. Well, one thing we're doing at the OVRDC office, we are a regional transportation planning organization. So that is, we work with the Ohio Department of Transportation very closely to be kind of a liaison in the region of our members, our 12-member counties of Southern Ohio. And one of the things we do a lot of reports and planning and strategic documents for them, and a lot of studies and transportation feasibility studies. So when we put all those documents together, we love to showcase the beauty of the area. So our coordinator of the transportation program is Stephanie Gilbert. She had a great idea. She said, let's have a photo contest and try to source some of our photos from our reports from the people in the area who take great photos. And we are doing that. So we're kicking that off, Patrick, and we're going to run the contest until July 17th. So from now until July 17th, we're asking all of our photographers out there to please send in their beautiful photos of our region and transportation activities. So like anything with roads and bridges and traffic, or walking or biking or railroads or air travel or river travel, any kind of transportation related photo that you may have out there, please send that to us and be part of our contest. So we've got the contest entry form up on the website, which is ovrdc.org. ovrdc.org, and it's right there on the front page, and you can send us your photos and up until July 17th, and then we'll get to pick on Facebook which photos will be included in our report, and what the cover photo will be is the people's choice. Doesn't that sound like fun?
I think that would be great. We take for granted the beauty that's surrounding us, and I'm very interested in the pictures showing off our area.
Me too. And, some of the things we don't realize, they call multimodal travel. We have river, rail, highway system, and, those are like the trifecta of what you need to have economic development in your community and in your region. So we're hoping these photos will show that off. And we'll definitely do our part to promote the photographer and also the beautiful photos of our area. So we're glad to announce that today on your show on Southern Ohio Matters, and definitely looking forward to the photos.
Well, I am too. Speaking of the photos and speaking of the contest, etc., OVRDC, Ohio Valley Regional Development Commission, works with a number of different community and federal agencies. And one of those federal agencies that you are in very close proximity with is the ARC. It's the Appalachian Regional Commission that is both a regional and a federal program.
Absolutely. And the reason I brought Jess along today is she is the person at OVRDC that you want to talk to if you have a project and you would like to access some of those ARC funds. But when I started at OVRDC not too long ago, I really didn't understand the role of the Appalachian Regional Commission. And I thought, Jess, if we could start, I'll say hello to Jessica Keeton. Jess, I think it would be really great for people to understand a little bit about the background of the Appalachian Regional Commission. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so the ARC was started in the 60s as part of the War on Poverty, and it was formed to help the Appalachian counties because they've historically suffered greater and longer economic distresses than the rest of the U.S., and that still holds true today, unfortunately. So the ARC was formed as a commission, federal commission. It's a state, federal, and regional partnership, what they like to call the three-legged stool, between the regional offices, which is the Ohio Valley Regional Development Commission, a state office through the Governor's Office of Appalachia, and then, of course, the federal ARC offices. And they do a wide variety of projects. Everything is really based around economic development and bettering the Appalachian region so as residents have a better chance to compete in the U.S. and global economies.
We're going to be putting up a map here showing in Ohio as well as all of the different states that are part of the Appalachian area.
One other thing I think is really interesting is this year, Governor Mike DeWine is the co-chair of the Appalachian Regional Council. So that makes it even more important for Ohio to be represented and to know about all the different impacts that ARC has in the region.
We're also very fortunate to have John Carey. John Carey is an individual that has been very actively involved in local government, state government. He's currently the director of the Ohio Appalachian Regional Commission, and he does a really good job of informing the public and helping different economic development groups with money.
Absolutely. And Jess and I attended back a couple months ago a summit that John Carey organized through the Governor's Office of Appalachia, focused on tourism for our area of Southern Ohio. And, tourism is one of the areas that they focus on at ARC, as well as broadband and making sure we have access to that. So in today's show, as you all see, we are working from home. So it just really underscores the importance of good broadband and having a good signal, not only for economic development like we do, but for schools and everyone out there who needs that great broadband project, to make sure we're all connected to the rest of the world. So ARC focuses on a lot of things like that, but I thought maybe, Jessica, we could talk a little bit about some of the projects, like who would qualify for an ARC project. So if anyone is out there, they might be interested, they might have a project that needs some funding, they could potentially connect.
Sure. So the ARC accepts a myriad of eligible applicants. basically, and unfortunately for for-profit companies, pretty much if you're anything except a for-profit, you're probably eligible for ARC funding. This includes units of governments, nonprofit organizations. We do libraries, hospitals, labor unions. We do a wide variety of projects with a wide variety of grantees.
And I was thinking too about schools, in fact. I mean, I know there's a lot of talk about broadband, so schools could even apply for that kind of funding.
Absolutely.
So, Jess, at OVRDC, what are some of the things we want to talk about? I know that with all of the impact of the COVID-19 on everyone's work habits and everything, a lot of our agencies are, number one, sending more funding down here to their area, but number two, they've also pushed deadlines back. So in our office, anyone who would be interested in working on an ARC application for funding, they have until June 26th, is that correct, to submit their application and start working with you?
That's correct. June 26th at noon. They are due via email. So if you are working from home, not to worry. You don't have to leave your couch. Just send your application via email.
And my next question is that the first time you should be hearing from people on June 26th?
Can you repeat that, Gina? I'm sorry,
yeah,
I didn't hear that.
That's okay. I was going to say, this is kind of a leading question, but I ask, is that the first time they should be hearing from you, and you should be hearing from them on the deadline application day, which is June 26th? I know you're always encouraging people to reach out early in their project application.
Absolutely. I'm not only the first reviewer for Appalachian Regional Commission projects, but I also offer technical assistance. So if you have questions about your project or just want to talk it over and, get some advice on what the best approach is for your application, or even, if you have a question, you're not quite sure if your project's eligible or ineligible and you don't want to waste your money, send me an email, give our office a call, and I'm very happy to talk to you or anybody about their project.
One of the things that we're going to also show is an easy way to contact, both down in the description and on here. Again, all this information is at ovrdc.org. So if you miss where you can send it, etc., they have a really good website that outlines ARC, the application, as well as other programs.
So since we're talking about ARC funding, I think, Patrick is going to help us connect with that and get you to the website, because there are quite a few pieces of information that you can follow, like deadlines and a lot of checklists and all those things. Jess, you are in charge of all of that. So is that the best place to start, you think, at the website?
Absolutely. We've tried our best to make the pre-application as user-friendly as possible. So everything that you need to put your pre-application together should be located there. And if you have any questions, just reach out, because I know, because we do such a myriad of projects, not every form may fit every project exactly. So if you have questions, let us know, and we'll always work with you.
Something that is of great interest to me is that when money is divided into different states and different regions, where do they determine? Where does the federal government determine who gets what?
That is a great question, Patrick. And I think a lot of it is based on need. But one of the other ways that they determine which counties get, or which areas get the most funding, and we haven't even talked about, is there is a match that goes along with ARC funding. So some counties are designated at-risk counties, and that's based on their economic status, and those counties actually have less of a match to come up with. So Jessica can tell us more about that. But one thing before we find out more about that, I want to say the census, the U.S. Census, is so important to what ARC designates as at-risk or emerging counties, those different statuses that really impact the grant applications on a level that you just can't understand. A lot of times when we're talking about the U.S. Census, you know, people sometimes don't think that it impacts their life. They don't see how it fits for them. But Jessica, one of the things that we want to talk about is the importance of the U.S. Census.
Absolutely. So Gina was talking about matching funds for projects and how it varies by county. So it's very important to fill out your census when you get that, because ARC uses a number of economic indicators and demographic indicators to determine what your grant rate is. It can be anywhere from 0%, so ineligible for the entire county that you live in, to 80% for our distressed counties. So it is of the utmost importance that we fill out our censuses and return them so that they're accurate data for the ARC to use, because they do pull that from the census. It can mean the difference between your counties and your local governments and your nonprofits having the ability to access these funds or not. So extremely important.
It is so important. And I even printed out, they have up-to-date data at the uscensus.gov, and we'll put that information here on the program for you to look at yourself. But, you know, if you look at Ohio, in the U.S., they have a 65% return rate as of today. In Ohio, that return rate is 57%. And in Southern Ohio, it's 50% and below. Down here, you can really see the light colors, which means we have not been sending back the census forms like we need to. It doesn't take very long, maybe 5 minutes at the most, and you can mail it in. You can go online and put in your information, and it's all private. It's all confidential. Patrick, I mean, people sometimes worry, you know, but they don't need to worry about the U.S. Census info. It's just to determine what Jess and I were talking about. It's like, what is the state of your state and your county and your region?
Deadlines are starting to get closer and closer, and so we have to be more proactive in undertaking the census.
Absolutely. They are still hiring people. We have heard from our regional coordinator for the census. You know, they check in with us quite a bit. Pike County definitely needs to, and Scioto County and Lawrence County, all three of those counties, as well as a couple in the southeastern edge of Ohio. You know, we really need to be encouraging those people to get that census information back. And then the last stage of it, they will go door to door and knock on doors and try to collect the information that way. So that should happen sometime, I think in August. It was going to start sooner, but everyone has had their timelines moved back because of all we're dealing with the COVID-19. So that's going to be coming soon. But we just want to say, as far as funding is concerned, and that's the one thing we do in our office, economic development and community development and planning, transportation planning, you know, all of those things are impacted by census data. So please, if you're out there and you have any kind of microphone, please shout it out as loud as you can. Let's all get that census information back so that we can have a correct count for our area and take advantage of that.
Well, as a matter of fact, there's another agency that is dependent upon the census information, and that's the Economic Development Administration. Just what is EDA, or Economic Development Administration?
The EDA is another great organization that we work with through Ohio Valley Regional Development Commission, the Economic Development Administration. There's quite a few acronyms in our business, isn't there, Jess? Can you tell us more about what EDA does and who they are?
Absolutely. So the Economic Development Administration is an economic development office under the U.S. Department of Commerce. They fund projects similar to those of the ARC, although they are nationwide. They also do bigger dollar amounts than the ARC. They have typically more stringent eligibility requirements than ARC does. But I think the average EDA grant is somewhere around $1.4 million, whereas ARC, at least in Ohio, your max amount regardless of your grant rate amount in your county is $250,000.
So EDA is a bigger project purse, basically. What are some of the projects that they would have done in our area that people might say, oh, okay, I know that?
Well, they fund business incubators. The Cricker Innovation Hub from Shawnee State University, that was funded by EDA, I think through a special pot of money called the Assistance to Coal Communities Program. They got almost $3 million for that. And they've done a few industrial parks, some roads, some water and sewer around here. So they're pretty varied in the types of projects that they do as well. They just do them on a bigger scale, and you've got more hoops to jump through for EDA funding.
You know, one of the things that I found with EDA is that they work with the infrastructure as well as, you know, some of the other organizations. We don't really realize the importance of infrastructure, such as potable water, highways, buses, things of that nature. We take for granted those services and can't understand why we don't have everything. The internet is another major infrastructure.
Yes.
Various different businesses and organizations rely upon federal assistance. And so EDA has been instrumental and has been a great partner with other organizations in building that infrastructure.
They also partnered with the Endeavor Center, right, Patrick? Is that part of the...
Yes, they did. The Endeavor Center at the Ohio State University South Centers has a business incubator in which, in order to build the facility, we had to rely on 4 or 5 different granting sources, and EDA was one of those. So it's not a matter of going into someone's bank account and then building. It requires a collaboration of different organizations to really get something that has a profound effect on the community.
I think collaboration is key, and that's one thing we really focus on at OVRDC. We think about our role in the region, and we serve 12 member counties in Southern Ohio. So we're always thinking about how to partner with everyone. You know, EDA too, in this time of COVID-19 and the CARES Act, Jessica has information about funding as far as EDA goes. Their funding has really increased with the CARES Act. So we really wanted to talk about it today, Patrick, because we feel like Southern Ohio needs to know there is additional money out there for projects that may not have been out there before. So
what is this CARES Act?
The CARES Act came down through Congress, of course, to support COVID-19 impacts. Part of the CARES Act was the increase that came through Small Business Administration, the loans that businesses could get to stay afloat. And that was, I think, the first wave of it. The second wave is coming, or the third wave. I mean, they just keep putting together these packages of aid for the area. So, Jessica, would you talk more about what's coming through the CARES Act?
Yes, EDA had their funding exponentially increased, specifically for the Chicago region, of which Ohio is a part with 5 other states. There's $225 million available for project funding alone. So they have already put out a notice of funding, and they are asking for economic development projects that are in some way related to the COVID pandemic crisis, whether it's recovery or planning or addresses some aspect of this current economic crisis we're in. That's what they're looking for. Typically, they're still doing the same sort of activities as far as public infrastructure or any other activity that falls in line, but it's typically infrastructure projects. And they've told us that they're going to be a little bit more flexible with this because they understand the deep impacts that COVID has really inflicted upon our economy. So with that, this COVID funding, they expect to fund at least 80% of your project costs, up to 100%. And they will go over 80% if you have some sort of extenuating complication for your economy, whether, you're already suffering from coal impacts, or you've had a disastrous business closure in your community, something like that. So if you call us again, we can talk to you about those sorts of situations and walk you through that. Also, very notably, they have announced no award ceiling for this money. So I was told that they would be doing projects probably over that average $1.4 million award. There could be, $5, $7, even $10 million projects funded out of this, but you have to be sure with EDA that you're able to document all of those economic impacts and also how you're reacting to the current crisis.
Now, this is primarily for communities, organizations, federal, state organizations in Southern Ohio. Is this correct?
Typically, grantees for EDA are going to be units of government, so counties or cities, villages. If you are a nonprofit, there are ways to work with EDA if you have a partner. So don't think just because you're a nonprofit, you can't do anything with this funding. Again, I would encourage anybody to reach out and talk to us and, do everything you can to form those important partnerships, which, as we mentioned before, collaboration is key in any successful project.
Hey, we're talking with Gina Collinsworth. Gina Collinsworth is the Public Information Coordinator with the Ohio Valley Regional Development Commission, the OVRDC program, along with Jessica. Jessica is the Economic Development Coordinator, in which she works with a number of different development programs. You can find their information at ovrdc.org, in which they have a wealth of material, etc. Gina, Jessica, I really appreciate the information that you have. Any final thoughts or words of wisdom?
I just am very happy to be here and great to have Jessica with me today. We're going to be back in our offices starting June 1st. So our office will be opening back up June 1st, like a lot of other things in Ohio. If you are wondering what in Ohio is reopening, you can check out the coronavirus.ohio.gov for the latest, and any kind of advice too on how to restart if you have a business and you're wondering about best practices. All that great information there, and this is great information too. Thank you so much, Patrick and Jess. Thank you.
I'm Patrick Dangle. This is Southern Ohio Matters. Thank you for viewing, and look for us in the coming months and weeks.